Welcome to the Crosswalk Podcast, where we have been called to carry our cross daily. Here is your host, Paul Fowler.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. This episode is one that is very close to my heart because I have been in this ministry for about 8 years now, and is one that I'm actually gonna just speak on and my experiences on more so than just follow a guideline of notes. Because for one, this topic has some debate within the church. And everything whenever it comes to actual ministries within the actual church, like actual programmable ministries. And this topic is, of course, as the title says, about youth ministry. Now, some churches have very active youth ministries and have hundreds of youth between the ages of, let's say, 11 to 18, something like that, or 10 to 17, or something of that manner. And so this is primarily, whenever I mention youth ministry or student ministry, this is primarily directed to those in middle school or high school. Any child below the middle school age, I think, would be in the category of children's ministry. But youth ministry is very important to me. I've been in it for about 8 years now. I've been the youth minister at the church I'm at now, Easley Community Church, for that long. I am a teacher, a high school teacher, have been for about 7 years now. And so ministering to the youth has been very, very important to me for years. As far as I can see back, it's been important to me ever since I was in youth. And so it is one of those things that, as I said, is kind of debated in the churches. I didn't realize this until later on in my faith, but some churches see youth ministry as something that ought not to be separated from the actual church ministry itself. And I guess you could place semantics on that, saying whether or not it is separated. In my idea, it's not. It's just a different category. It's just a different locale whenever it comes to teaching youth. For example, on Wednesday nights here, we have my pastor, Pastor Sammy, is preaching to the adults upstairs, while I am down here teaching the youth in the downstairs area. And why I think it is important to teach the youth even separately from adults is because they're handling or dealing with things differently than adults. They don't have jobs. They don't have families to provide for. They don't have all economic issues that adults have to deal with. And so I want to speak to them about things that they may be dealing right here and right now, and help them be prepared for what they have to deal with later on as they grow into their adulthood. And one of the things that I want to make abundantly clear, and what the scriptures want to make abundantly clear, is that youth is not a lesser ministry, and it's not lesser in any sense of the word. And the youth are not lesser whenever it comes to their faith either. I want to read this, what Paul says to Timothy in his first letter to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 11 and 12 say this: "Command and teach these things. Don't let anyone despise your youth, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." So Timothy is a young man. He is in his youth at this time. We don't know exactly how old he is. There's speculation about that. Some people say he's in his late teens. Some people say he's in his early 20s. But he is young comparative to all the other ministers. And Paul is writing to him because Paul has put Timothy in charge of the church of Ephesus. And so this is a big deal for a young man. I can actually speak from experience. I've been the youth pastor here since I was 19 years old. And so there is some weight on the shoulders of a young man and some inexperience on my part. I can just speak for myself. There was a lot of inexperience. I was saved maybe 2 years at the time and growing in my faith, still growing in my faith, but I lacked some wisdom, I lacked some discernment. And as I grew into it, I think God has helped me become more aware of what the youth need and what they need to hear from God. As well, like they need to hear certain things and hit on certain things so specifically, I believe. Like for example, a couple weeks ago, we did a series about who they are. Who are you? Who are you? What does the Bible say about you? And that's very amiss because we're living in a culture where the youth are being attacked and their personhood's being attacked. Their nature is being attacked and just their characters. And so they have struggles. I mean, we dealt with it. I mean, I've been graduated. I've been out of high school for almost 10 years now. I know some of y'all probably have been out of high school a lot longer than I have. But whenever you look back at those times, you can know that sometimes we had struggles knowing who we were, our identity. And so these youth, these teenagers, need to know what God says about them. They need to understand what God says they are, who God says they are. And now we're going through a series about who God is, and they need to understand who God is, what the Bible says about who God is. And what breaks my heart is I know that a lot of youth aren't getting this. They're not getting this at home. They're not getting this at school, of course. And so where they may come here so that they may learn these things. And what I've noticed is a lot of these youth want to know. Now, of course, there are some that don't care. They don't care. They don't think that it's relevant to their life now. What does a 2,000-year-old book have to say about me? It has a lot to say. And it is more relevant than anything that you could listen to, anything that you could watch, or anything you could read. The Bible is relevant to you. And that's not saying that we have to make it relevant. We had to twist its words. We got to do all these things to make it relevant to the teenagers of today. No, it's relevant of itself, in and of itself. And we just need to present that to these teenagers. And so youth ministry is so important to me. I've had so much fun in the past. I mean, we've had youth nights here where we do exciting things. We've taken them and done paintball, done things with them where we've as a church, but we bring some youth with us. We've gone camping in those times. We've had games. We've had fun. Being able to have good experiences within the church. But I wanted to say this. There's a lot of churches out there that negate the Bible teaching, the sound Bible teaching for fun and games. And that breaks my heart. I mean, just a few months ago, we were sitting in here with my youth, and I live in the Bible Belt, down here in South Carolina. We live in the Bible Belt. And some people call it the buckle of the Bible Belt. And you think to yourself that everybody knows the common stories of the Bible, you know. And so it's me and some of the youth were playing the game Pictionary before our lesson, and we were doing Bible Pictionary, and I had two girls on one team, and everybody had teams of two. And two girls got up, and one of them was drawing. And they started drawing. You see they have fire. You see that they have a bush and stuff. You see that I think they're trying to draw Moses next to it and everything. And it points an arrow down to the bush and stuff. And the other girl doesn't get it. Time runs out. And the other one goes, it's the burning bush. And the other girl goes, what's the burning bush? And it struck me, you know, in my mind, how does she not know what the burning bush is? And it's like God impressed upon my heart at that point. It's like, because she was never taught. Even if she was taught, she doesn't know. So didn't make an impression. And so what did I need to do? I need to teach. That's my goal. They need to be taught, because even if they were in Sunday school, apparently the Sunday school teacher didn't do them justice. And I'm not just saying maybe they skipped the day they were supposed to learn about the burning bush. I'm not going to try to blame it all on the Sunday school teacher about whoever taught them. Maybe they just didn't listen. All that stuff. There's so many variables that could have mattered. What mattered at that moment is this young lady did not know Exodus, did not know the burning bush, did not know the miraculous things that God, the miraculous thing that God did in that story that is taught. I've known practically the majority of my life since I was a kid about what the burning bush was. You know, I've known. I grew up in the church, but not everybody did. I think it was the very first sermon I ever preached in these walls at my new church. It was on I believe it was a Wednesday night or a Sunday night, and I preached about youth ministry because I was just introduced as the youth pastor, and I wanted to preach about how important the youth were. And I said, I never want to be the guy that I never want to have a teenager walk through that door and not feel welcomed here. I had I had many different youth pastors. And so growing up, I mean, if I can count them, you know, I think I had 5 or 6 different youth pastors. One stayed longer than most, but in the grand scheme of things, 5 or 6. And I remember one of the youth pastors that we had, and I'm not going to mention any names. I don't want to slander anybody. I don't want to do any of that. That's not the point of this. But whenever a kid would walk in with a band T-shirt or something like that, he'd tell them to turn it inside out or leave. And as I got older, that just broke my heart, you know, especially being a youth pastor, broke my heart, because some of these kids, they don't have anything else. Like, what if all they have is crude stuff on their T-shirts, you know? Instead of telling them, hey, go turn it inside out or get out, why don't you go buy them a new shirt? I would have. We had a clothes closet. Why didn't we just go help them find new clothes or clothes new to them or something of that nature? Teach them why we ought not to wear these things, or teach them what the Bible says about these kind of things, instead of having 2 choices: turn it inside out or get out. And so the youth kind of dwindled down. We had 100 kids or more coming on a Wednesday night, and that dwindled down to like 15 within a year or two. And so I'm not saying that youth pastor, you know, didn't do his job. I'm saying that I did not, you know, agree with the methods. I know that youth pastor preached the Bible. I learned a lot from him, and I was guided by him in a lot of ways. And even after he had left, and the youth pastor that came up after him was guided by him, and I enjoyed my youth. I had so much fun. Youth, to me, the 4 years I was in youth, high school youth, I had so much fun. It's some of the most, even after, even late middle school, some of the most fun I've ever had. Even though I wasn't born again yet, the majority of that, some of the most fun and some of the greatest memories I have, and I'll never forget those things. And it just showed how important youth is, because I'm so glad I had memories of going on youth retreats and sitting with, even though I didn't believe at the time really, I still got to sit down and have these moments where God was still at the center, instead of looking back and having memories of vain things, or partying with my friends, or getting drunk, or getting a high, or something like that. I can look back and say youth ministry had an impact on me. Whether or not I was saved, it still had an impact that I can still look back on. Do I want these kids to be saved more than anything? More than I want games, more than I want trips, more than I want them to go to Carowinds, more than I want them, to do anything. I want them to know the Lord. and that's what I want to do, and everything else will fall under that. So in youth ministry, there's a lot of things that that goes into it that people don't see behind the scenes. It's not like being a pastor, I don't think, because these kids, they need somebody to hear them. I mean, adults need people to hear them, but a lot of times adults want to handle things themselves. Not all the time. But with youth, they feel unheard. And that's why I think it's so important that Paul actually pointed out, don't let anyone despise your youth, because that's how they feel, is they are despised because of their youth. I feel that way at times. I'm 27 years old, and I feel that way sometimes, you know? And I don't want to boast about myself or anyways. I've been in ministry for a decade now. I've been in ministries ever since pretty much I was saved. I've been in ministry. I was allowed by the grace of God and by the love and kindness of my pastor at the time. I've been preaching ever since practically I was saved. I may not have been the best, but I was still allowed to. I've been in ministry for a decade now, but I'm still kind of looked down upon because of my youth, because of how young I am. I've always found it funny that even though I have been saved for 10 years, I'm still growing in my faith. Everyone's still growing in my faith. I got saved 10 years ago. I've been in ministry ever since then. I've been preaching and teaching. And I mean, I taught Sunday school whenever I was 17, 18 years old. All these different things. And I'm, again, not boasting about myself. I'm just stating facts. This is what I've done. All for the glory of God, and all God in and through me, through my salvation. I've been saved for that long, been in ministry that long. But if you get a person that's maybe 10 years older than me, been saved for 2 years, doesn't really know how to teach or something like that, people will be more likely maybe to listen to them than to me. I don't know. But that's how these youth feel, and I can sympathize with that. Because people do despise people because of their youth. I mean, I hear it every Sunday, and I know it's in jokes and stuff. Somebody my age says that they have a pain, and one of the older ones, oh, you're too young to have pain, or saying that I'm tired. Oh, you're too young to be tired. And I think I even asked the question this morning to my fiance was, what age is it that you can cut off and say, this is the moment that you get to be tired, or this is the moment you get to actually feel pain? It's silly, honestly. But these youth feel unheard because it's not about physical ailments. It's about their voice. It's about what can they say. Does God even hear me? If my parents don't even listen to me, or if my teacher won't even listen to me, or my church won't even listen to me, how can I expect God to listen to me? Because we're supposed to be the image bearers of God. And so I desire, and I'm not the best of it. I'm not the best at it. God's still growing me. But a lot of these youth want to be heard. They want to be listened to. And a lot of them are like, they desire to know God all the more. I've got students that every single morning that I walk into my classroom to teach, they are there poring over the Word of God. And I just love that. It does good to my heart. And so I think youth ministry, whenever I say youth ministry, it's meeting people where they're at. And it's meeting teenagers where they're at, seeing their need, and trying to provide a service to them in the best way that we can. Whether that means that we have to have a separate meeting with the youth, separate Bible study or whatever it may be, or integrated into the Sunday morning service, and that's what they get, or integrated into Bible studies with the adults. Regardless of what you believe you ought to do, the youth need good, godly people to look after them, teach them, and listen to them. They really do. And that shows love. I believe that shows love. We need to be able to correct them in the most loving manner, not shun them or shut them out, but to see where they're at. And again, I'm not the best at this, but God's growing me. And so for those, I'm going to end this here soon. I know this wasn't super long. I'm trying to make these a little bit shorter. But I just wanted to give you some of my thoughts and my experiences in youth ministry. But I want to charge you, as whoever's listening to this, if you're an adult, I want you to strive to be an example to teenagers. I want you to strive to be a good, godly example to them. Maybe even take them under your wing and try to teach them what God has for them. Because they need it. In this world, they need it. They have everyone else telling them who they ought to be. They have YouTube. They have TikTok. They have Instagram. They have all these places that are teaching them what they ought to be that is wrong. They desperately need someone telling them what is right. Because I'm not even trying to make this seem more extreme than it is, but it is life or death. It is life or death, and these teenagers, they need to know what the life is, and that is Christ. That is Jesus Christ. And we need to be those examples. If you're a teenager listening to this, I implore you, I strongly encourage you, if you're not in church, get into church. Find a way to get to church. I guarantee you there's a lot of churches that will come and pick you up if you ask to, like bus routes and stuff that pick up teenagers. If you can't find a way to church, if your parents won't take you or anything like that, I'm sure that there is a way that you can listen to those sermons. You can try to get guidance from somebody. Message somebody. I mean, I'm on Messenger, you know. I'm on these things and stuff. I'm not. If you need to reach out to somebody, reach out to someone you know that teaches these things. You know, older women teach younger women. Older men teach younger men. Young men find an older man to teach you. Young women find an older woman to teach you these things. Be dedicated. And I know it's easier said than done, but this is very important. Strive to live for the glory of God, but I think us adults need to pick up the slack that we've been dropping for a while now and show these youth that they are extremely loved and they are extremely welcome, but God desperately wants to save them, and He will. He has. He's in the business of salvation. That's His whole thing, you know. And adults, don't despise kids because they're young. Don't look down on them because they're young. Build them up. Encourage them. Love them as Christ loves them. And share the gospel with them. With all that being said, I pray that this was of some encouragement. I just kind of spoke today, lacked notes, but I hope it was encouraging. And I hope that y'all have a wonderful week this week. Until next time, keep walking in faith. God bless. Thank you for listening to the Crosswalk Podcast. If you like what you heard, please support this ministry by following on Facebook, Instagram, X, and other social media platforms. You can also reach out by emailing me at thecrosswalkpodcast923@gmail.com. Thank you again, and until next time, keep walking by faith.